Signs that you're having an emotional affair. Like to me, that would be worse than a physical affair. Thank you so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. Once again, I want to welcome back Dr. Gary Salyer, the author of Safe to Love Again. Gary, thank you for being here.
Welcome. It's wonderful being here. Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to your discussion, to our discussion on this topic today. That signs that you're having an emotional affair. The whole topic of whether men and women can be friends is fascinating to me anyway. I have my own opinion on that. We've done some segments on it. But the idea of an emotional affair, it can be, like to me, that would be worse than a physical affair. So I thought this would make a good discussion. Do you see this a lot?
I've heard it. I remember one couple I dealt with where there was an actual affair. The first statement she said was, "If this is just sex, we can deal with it. But if I find there's emotions involved here, we're done." It was clear from the first 30 seconds. If there's emotions here, that's one thing. If it's just sex and physical, we can deal with this. And the research does point out there tends to be more damage with emotional affairs than a full-fledged sexual one. I think from a man's perspective, it's a little surprising, but not from a woman's.
No, no, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think the emotional part of it means so much more, especially to women, that there's a lot of damage that can be done there. So let's talk about some of the signs. What are these signs? What do they tell us? Number one here, frequent contact, that there's just an overabundance of, texting and calling, and you're just in contact with this person way more than you should be.
So let's understand an emotional affair as when, and we all have emotional, relationships with all of our friends. And I don't have a problem that being real, true friends, with male or female, that's fine. Right? But there's a separate, deeper room in the house. And it's one thing, having all your friends in the, we're in the dining room, so to speak, living room, right? But you don't invite them back all to the bedroom most of the time. It's when you're putting people into that emotional, deeper space that should be resolved, reserved for you and your wife or husband. It's when that boundary gets crossed where the real depth of the intimacy is being shared and not shared with the partner. This is where the bond is really shifting itself to a more marital type of friendship. So we got to get that shift of why are we allowing the depth of a relationship to be there with someone that is just a friend. I mean, the key book on the research for affairs it was entitled Not Just Friends.
Great title. Well, and that is number two here, that what you brought up, that is frequent sharing or sharing of information that you would normally share with your partner. Like if you have good news, you want to tell somebody, well, you call this person versus your partner.
Exactly. And it's usually inappropriate. Now you got to get this idea. She uses in the book, Not Just Friends, the analogy of a house, that the couple bubble, is like a house. And you have windows and you have walls. And they're supposed to have some windows to allow communication with the outside world. We all like having some sunlight, right? But in an emotional affair, the windows get bigger and the walls get less. And then that gets really aimed at another person. So instead of running towards the heart of the one that you're pledged to, you're opening up that level of we-ness over here. Now, there may be marital problems. There almost always are as to why some of this stuff happens. But the point being, in an emotional affair, another person may not be physically having sex, but they are sapping the emotional connection, and it's often a precursor for the physical.
The number three here, constant thoughts. I think you were just referencing that also, is that you think about this person all the time. You can't get this person out of out of your mind, and maybe you even start fantasizing. If you find yourself doing that, uh-oh.
Now that is key. What happens when you first start dating? Mother Nature throws a lot of dopamine, and we have
Mm-hmm.
this form of, insane madness where we can't get somebody out of your mind. This is telling it your brain is beginning to create a primary romantic attachment. It is running through the same program, but now instead of being aimed at your spouse, it's being aimed at somebody else. It's a real clue that if that early dating apparatus of yes, always constantly thinking about it, if it starts
Mm-hmm.
getting directed over here, then something is wrong. That is a symptom that
Mm-hmm.
your deep subconscious is running a mating program on somebody else.
Here's a good one too. Feeling understood, like this person really gets me, that understands me a lot more than my partner.
Now, this is also part of the case that when I heard that, then I know something is wrong with the marital friendship at home. If you've got the sensitive new age, so let's say guy, and she is with a highly dismissive, never feel her feelings. She shares something, yeah, I was really disappointing in the meeting with Bob. She goes, well, this guy goes, well, gosh, that must have felt terrible. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
all those needs, like, you just ask me my feelings. That's a dangerous moment.
Yeah.
Instead of going over and making the grass greener, saying, hon, I really need to be felt. That is a moment where you realize I'm opening up a we with somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Inappropriate sharing, that goes towards that you share your intimate details about your life that you normally would share with your partner, with someone else, or even share your problems in your relationship with that other person.
This is when it starts getting deeper. First, it's going out to lunch. Oh my God. Oh, you just really feel me. And then pretty soon you're sharing, oh my God, my partner never feels me the way you do. This is again signs that that primary bonding is beginning to shift and it's getting stronger and stronger.
Here's another one too, and that's a clear sign to me. Unfair comparisons. You're starting to really focus on your partner's flaws more, and everything is perfect about this new person. If
Well, again, notice in an initial dating when there's that big bond really forming out, we are biologically programmed to just notice just the good things, right? There's always a second stage of, the call of the wild, as one person put it, Joe Court. There is going to be that. But
mm-hmm.
if this person is perfect, just notice you're shifting into more like your initial stages of dating. And of course, it's unfair from the fact of the matter is that they don't know your faults yet.
Right,
You don't know
right.
theirs. Now, I'm not saying you don't have some friends. I mean, I had a couple of friends tell me too. One was an actual woman friend told me in my second marriage, you've got problems the first year. And I didn't even share problems. She had just come over for dinner, her and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And she just told me, I think there's some real issues here and you don't see them. And it turned out to be the exact thing that led to the divorce. She saw it before I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing, but she's married.
Yeah.
And she's really just a friend. But if you're really just going and saying, oh my God, and you're seeking that emotional comfort, now you're at a deeper stage. You're
Mm-hmm.
setting me off against his or her me off against her. Notice that this is now putting a clip, some sort of wedge now between wedge
Right.
of criticism that instead of dealing with it, you're dealing with somebody else.
Well, and then the next logical progression is spending more time together, as they say here. That not only do you have, the infrequent or the frequent contact, but now you're actually spending more time together, and perhaps at questionable times of the day.
You don't go home. You just, this went out to the bar, and it just so happens
Mm-hmm.
for happy hour, and it just happens to go to 8 o'clock at night. Oh yeah, I was there with some of the guys, or
Yep.
but yeah, but you weren't with the guys,
Right.
or whatever. And then from there, there's inappropriate hugging, and then I mean, Mother Nature tends to take over there. But that's
Right.
when you're spending more and more time, especially after work, weekends, not so good. And when
Yep.
you get into this sort of, well, we're just friends and and the long hugs, there's a way I can hug any friend, and there's another way I would hug her. right?
Hmm.
And we know what those are. You can, and again, body language. You can see you can walk in a room and tell when somebody's an item. Two people are
Yes,
an item or not, and they start getting that somebody's an item. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and then secrecy is another, of course, huge, huge sign that at first they write here by omission that you're just simply not telling things or sharing things that you should be. What you are doing, these frequent texts, these frequent calls, the meetings, that this is not something you share with your partner.
Yes, it's the secrecy, yeah. When that is when you have made the primary connection over here. This
Mm-hmm.
is latter stages. I can still remember how it was found out for one couple is the other partner answered a text at 7 in the morning in bed on a Sunday.
Mm, mm,
Nothing good became of that texting. There was flirting and all that stuff. And lo and behold, yeah, there was. Now, this was an actual affair, but just notice that our need for constant supportive contact,
mm-hmm.
um, we're seeking it with somebody else. Oftentimes when there are emotional affairs, I do have to look at what's going on that friendship isn't up and running. I've only seen one in 17 years where I really thought it was 100% characterological. Okay, because there have
Okay.
been so many of them. They may have had some stuff between the two of them, but this was in that instance. But most of the time, it's what's missing in the marital friendship that
Mm-hmm.
created the hole,
The
right?
whole.
Now, sometimes people do bring their own little templates where when they were two, they had a very inattentive mother and they found out that they had to go and have a lot of connections with a lot of women just to get their 2-year-old met. And there was the thing. I need a lot of different women to get my needs met. And it was still running at 50.
Wow, what a great example. Yeah.
Now that's what I mean more. Now that's more. And he goes, "Oh my God, you mean to tell me?" I go, "Yeah, this is that old program. At two, that made sense, but that template is not going to work for we 40 years later."
Right.
Now that's some of it, but you want to make sure that it's all about the sanctity, that this is really safe and secure. And anything that gets between what I call the two heads is a bad deal and it's
Right.
siphoning off. So emotional affairs are deadly. And for women, that's like that emotional bond tells me I'm safe. And if it's going elsewhere, this is overriding a lot of things from evolutionary psychology. The biggest fear women have is actually their competition, other women coming
Mm-hmm.
in and getting it. If they steal that source of meat 20,000 years ago, they and their children may die.
Well, so what do we do about it, Gary? How do you counsel people on this? If you say, somebody's listening or one of your clients, yeah, they're having an emotional affair. What can you do? How do you counsel them?
If when they're partnered and married, then I say the first thing is we have to fess up that that's what it actually is. No more BS. That is, oh, just friends. Okay. At
Hmm.
some point, no, it's not just friends, right?
Hmm.
And then we have to pull in and find out what has been missing in that marital friendship. I will also look at what's setting that up in the background as well of their childhood, right? But most times I'm going to say we needs we need a new we. In fact, and when there's been an emotional affair, what I usually tell them is marriage 1.0 is over. We need marriage 2 or even 3.0 because something was lacking back there. And I know for a fact that I'm working on a whole different set of emotional connections. We've got to open up the emotional channels so that bond feels safe and positive and wonderful. So you don't need this stuff out here.
When you say fess up, do you mean to yourself or to your partner? Because I have my own opinion on that, that once you know about it, it's almost like the damage is so deep that you can't fix it.
This you play by ear. Fess up
Mm-hmm.
means you stop BSing yourself and saying
Mm-hmm.
it isn't what it is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to talk about it after you've done some work in order to fix it. I can
Okay.
play that by ear a little bit. I don't keep secrets. I am not going to keep secrets from a spouse. I do not play the secrets game. And I think most times couples can overcome it. I've, worked with a lot of couples that have had affairs. And, it's not like the other spouse didn't have suspicions. So
Mm-hmm.
it's good, it's good. It's kind of good just cleaning out the wound. So there's a clean space. And if you don't admit what is, how do you get it to be what it should be? You got to
Mm-hmm.
start from what is.
Well, unfortunately, I was in my 25-year marriage was filled. I mean, it was filled with infidelity. So I have a very personal view of this, but I always find the conversations very interesting because this is relevant to so many people. How do you sum this up? How do we close this segment?
There's always best practices in general that I talk about on a show like this. And in any given couple, any given individual, you have to balance that with what is going in that unique person. The best thing to do is, if you are sensing that, to really admit what it is, not to play silly games with yourself. It isn't what it is. Oh, we're just friends. If no. If you've got all this other stuff going on, you're not just friends. And that means, and my second advice is what I've told a couple friends. If grass is looking greener on the other side, find out what's going on that you need to water your own.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole just friends, if you say just friends, there's an issue there. For me, that's a huge red flag. And people disagree with me there, and that's okay. But yeah, the just friends, is it just friends?
Not with these other clues.
Well, I'm really interested in hearing what our viewers have to say on this. I'm really looking forward to the comments. Share some of your experience because it does help all of us when we read this. We're not alone in this, or maybe deal. If we have to deal with something like that, that it always helps when we hear from you. Gary, thank you for your time. I'm always so happy to have you here. I will link to all of your information, like I always do, your website, and of course, your book right there. And if you want to get in touch with Gary directly, the contact information is in the show notes. And Gary, I look so forward to another conversation soon on Second Act TV.
Privileged to be here.